A long time ago, there was a big, strong city called Jericho. It sat in the middle of a wide, green valley. Jericho had tall, thick walls made of stone. The people inside the city felt safe because they thought no one could ever get through those walls. Rafa the Rabbit lived near Jericho. She had made her burrow under a shady olive tree just outside the city gates. From there, she could hop around the fields and watch everything that was happening. Rafa liked her home. She liked nibbling on clover and resting in the soft grass. But one day, something changed. Rafa's big ears twitched as she heard the sound of many footsteps coming from far away. She sat up tall and looked out across the land. In the distance, a huge group of people was walking together. They were the Israelites, God's people, and they had come a very long way. "They've been traveling in the wilderness for years," Rafa whispered to herself. "Now they've come to Jericho." The people of Jericho had heard stories about the Israelites. They knew that God had helped them escape Egypt, and they had crossed a river on dry ground. Now the Israelites had arrived right outside the city. Rafa watched as the people of Jericho rushed to close the heavy gates. The guards climbed to the top of the walls to keep watch. "They're scared," Rafa thought. "They don't understand who the Israelites are." Inside the city, the people whispered and worried. "What if the Israelites try to attack us?" they said. "What if they take our homes?" others cried. But Rafa had heard stories from her bird friends who flew high above the city. They told her the Israelites weren't coming just to fight. They were coming because God had promised them a new home. "This land belongs to them," the birds had said. "God promised it long ago." Rafa watched as a kind woman named Rahab stood quietly on the city wall. She had helped 2 Israelite men hide when they came to visit Jericho. She believed in their God and trusted him. "I hope Rahab will be safe," Rafa said softly. As night fell, Rafa wiggled back into her burrow. She felt the ground hum softly from all the people camped nearby. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew that God was taking care of his people, the Israelites, and even Rahab inside Jericho. "I'll keep watching," Rafa said as she curled up in her nest. God's story isn't finished yet. And under the soft light of the stars, Jericho's walls stood tall and quiet, waiting for what God would do next. The end. Rafa the Rabbit peeked out of her burrow early in the morning. The sun was just rising over the tall stone walls of Jericho. Everything was quiet inside the city, but outside the walls, Rafa saw the Israelites moving through their camp. "They're waking up early again," Rafa whispered to herself. She twitched her nose and watched carefully. "I wonder what they're doing today." For days now, the people of Jericho had been afraid. The city gates were shut tight. The people on the walls kept watch day and night. Inside the city, children whispered, and families stayed close to their homes. They didn't know what would happen next. But Rafa had heard something strange was going on. Rafa's friend, a little sparrow named Zuriel, fluttered down to tell her the news. "The Israelites are not fighting," Zuriel chirped. "They are marching." "Marching?" Rafa asked, her ears standing straight up. Zuriel nodded. They walk quietly around the city walls. They don't yell or bang on the gates, they just walk. And they blow trumpets. Rafa blinked her big eyes. That was not what she had expected. Usually, armies made loud noises and tried to break down walls. But these people were quiet. They moved slowly, step by step, following 7 priests who blew long golden trumpets. In front of them was a special wooden chest, the Ark of the Covenant, carried by strong men. Rafa peeked closer from behind a rock. She could hear the soft sound of the trumpets. Toot, toot, they called. But no one shouted, no one ran. They just walked around the city. Inside Jericho, the people were confused. What are they doing? They asked each other. Why are they just walking? The guards on the wall whispered. They're not trying to knock the walls down, someone said. Maybe they're waiting for something. Rafa wondered too. She turned to Zuriel and said, They're not afraid. They're trusting God to tell them what to do. Zuriel nodded. They march because God told them to. They are listening carefully. The next morning, Rafa woke up and peeked out again. There they were, the Israelites marching quietly around Jericho once more. And again the next day, and the next. For 6 days in a row, they walked around the city one time and then went back to their camp. The people inside Jericho watched from the walls, holding their breath. No one knew what was going to happen, but Rafa felt something deep inside her heart. God is doing something big, she whispered. I just know it. And as the sun set each night, Rafa curled up in her cozy burrow, waiting to see what God would do next. The end. Rafa the Rabbit woke early on the 7th day. She stretched her little paws and twitched her nose, feeling something different in the air. The sky was bright, and the wind was quiet. But Rafa's heart beat quickly. She knew today was special. From her burrow by the city walls of Jericho, Rafa watched the Israelites line up again. There were the priests blowing their golden trumpets. Toot, toot. There were the strong men carrying the Ark of the Covenant, and behind them came all the people. But today, they didn't stop after walking around the city once. They're marching again, Rafa whispered to herself. Zuriel the sparrow swooped down beside her. This is the 7th day, he chirped. God told them to walk around the city 7 times today. 7 times? Rafa asked, her ears standing tall. Zuriel nodded. And then, something big is going to happen. Inside Jericho, the people on the walls stared in silence. They're marching again, one guard whispered. But they aren't fighting, said another. They just keep walking, said a third. Why? Rafa watched as the Israelites circled the city, once, then twice, then 3 times. Around and around they went, quietly, except for the sound of the trumpets. Toot, toot, they played as they marched. By the 7th time around, Rafa's heart was thumping. She huddled close to her burrow and watched carefully. The Israelites stopped marching. The trumpets played one last long note. And then, the people shouted. All at once, their voices rose high into the sky. Shout, for the Lord has given you the city, they cried. And then, Rafa heard a deep rumbling, rumble, crack, boom. The walls of Jericho shook. Great stones tumbled down. Dust rose into the sky. Rafa's eyes grew wide as she watched the mighty walls crumble right before her. "The walls are falling," she gasped. Zuriel flapped his wings quickly. "It's just as God said it would be." Inside Jericho, the people ran in every direction, but one house stayed standing, Rahab's house on the wall. Rafa remembered Rahab had helped the Israelite spies and trusted God. She and her family were safe, just as God had promised. Rafa peeked out of her burrow as the Israelites came into the city. They weren't wild or mean. They were calm and careful. They helped Rahab and her family leave the city safely. "This is their new home now," Zuriel said softly. That night, as the stars twinkled above, Rafa rested in her burrow. She thought about everything she had seen. "God is powerful," Rafa whispered, "and he always keeps his promises." And from that day on, Rafa knew that Jericho's story wasn't just about walls coming down. It was about trusting God and seeing his mighty love at work. The end.